So in the last session, this is microbiology session 5. In session 4, we discuss about sterilization practicals, then microorganisms and diseases, and at last we discuss about the use of microorganisms in industry. Now today we are going to start with application of microorganisms in environmental management, right? Okay. Yes, so from industries as well as from the agriculture sector, it releases various kind of chemical substances to the environment, right? They do not readily degradable in nature, like plastics, right? Now, if we take the agriculture, from the agriculture, they release like different kind of insecticides, herbicides, as well as like from the industries, heavy metals, right? They are not degraded or they are very slowly degraded, right? Since they are not readily degradable in nature, we can use microorganisms to degrade these substances, right? By using these microorganisms, we can slowly degrade these organisms, these substances. The first one is bioremediation, right? Now, we are going to learn about different methods or different applications of microorganisms in environmental management. I told you like from the agriculture sector and from the industries even, they release different kinds of heavy metals, herbicides, insecticides to the environment. They are not readily degradable. Now, in the nature, they are present in the environment or in the soil and they will contaminate the water resources even. And they can cause different kind of diseases, right? And cause water pollution. So the first application of microorganism in environmental management is bioremediation. Bioremediation, it is a technology that applies living organism to remove or degrade or detoxify pollutants. Right? This biodegradation, it takes place in the soil. Like microorganisms are used here, right? The growth of this microorganism in polluted soils and water is stimulated to promote biodegradation or bioremoval of pollutants. Now here, who are the microorganisms used? Who are the microorganisms that we can use for the bioremediation? We use microorganisms with selected properties or genetically modified microorganisms with selected properties for this bioremediation process. Bioremediation is used to decompose wastewater from food processing and chemical plants, as well as remediate soil and water contaminated with oil spills, toxic metal waste, and hazardous organic waste. Right? Look at the note. Bioremediation, the first application, the first use of microorganisms in environmental management. What is bioremediation? It is a technology that applies living organisms to remove, degrade, or detoxify pollutants. Bioremediation, it occurs in soil. Microorganisms are used occasionally in this bioremediation process. And we can stimulate the growth of microorganisms in polluted soils and water to promote biodegradation or bioremoval of these pollutants. Then, microorganisms with selected properties or genetically modified microorganisms with selected properties are used for this degradation or removal of specific pollutant from the polluted site. And bioremediation is now used to remediate soil and water contaminated with oil spills, toxic metal waste, hazardous organic waste, etc., and to decompose wastewater from food processing and chemical plants. The second thing is solid waste treatment. What are solid waste? Solid waste here in Monoada. Solid waste means solid waste. What are solid waste? Solid waste, it includes the materials like plant and animal residues, food waste, paper, plastic, polythene, and glass. Right? So, we have to properly manage these solid waste. If not, like we have to properly manage these solid waste to ensure the community health and environmental safety. The accumulation of unmanaged waste in these big piles in open environment can lead to environmental pollution, soil pollution, air pollution, and water pollution, which is harmful for the community health, for the environment, right? Yes. So, solid waste treatment. For the solid waste treatment, we can use microorganisms. Now, the solid waste accumulated from the household, like garbage, it poses various environmental and health issues. Here, now in the waste treatment, this waste is degraded by microorganism either by aerobically or anaerobically. Now, if we do composting, it is an aerobic degradation, right? In composting, what happens? Microorganisms break down large substances into small molecules. In which condition? In the presence of oxygen. That means aerobic conditions, right? And the waste is, in composting, waste is converted into humus. Then compressing. Compressing means, like you may have seen, like garbage, it is placed as large compacted landfills or piles. In those places, the conditions are anaerobic, right? No oxygen. So, when the waste is degraded anaerobically, methane is produced. This anaerobic degradation is done by methanogenic bacteria. And as a result, they produce methane gas as a byproduct. This methane gas can be, methane gas means natural gas. Can be used as it can be used to produce electricity even, right? So there are two applications. First one, what is it? Bioremediation. Second one is solid waste treatment. Application of microorganism like in environmental management. Bioremediation is a technology that applies living organisms to improve or degrade or detoxify pollutants, right? Here, this bioremediation, it takes place in soil. The growth of microorganisms, the microorganisms with selected properties are stimulated to promote this biodegradation, and it is used to decompose wastewater from food processing and chemical plants and to remediate soil and water which is contaminated with oils, toxic metals, and hazardous organic waste. The second application is solid waste treatment. Solid waste means the waste that accumulated like plant or animal materials, plastics, polythene, right? They are all together known as solid waste. Here, microorganisms, they are either aerobic or anaerobic. Now, for example, if we take composting, right? It is done by aerobic microorganisms. And they convert waste into humus. In compressing, that means garbage is placed as large compacted piles or landfills. In those places, the conditions are anaerobic. The degradation is done by methanogenic bacteria anaerobically and produce methane gas as a byproduct. Then that methane gas can be used to produce electricity or natural gas. But solid waste treatment. Accumulation of solid waste from household possesses various environmental and health issues. In waste treatment, waste is degraded by microorganisms either aerobically or anaerobically. Composting degrades waste aerobically. At the end, waste is converted to a stable material like humus. Mostly, garbage are placed as large compacted landfills or piles, where conditions are mostly anaerobic. In such situation, waste is degraded anaerobically using methanogenic bacteria. Methanogenic කියන්නේ කවුද? It's an anaerobic bacteria and produce methane gas here. It may be used to generate electricity or as natural gas. අර කොහෙද ලංකාවේ කුණු කන්දක් කඩන් වැටුනේ? මොකද්ද එතන උනේ? එතන ওই මීතේන් ගෑස් තමයි ප්‍රොඩියුස් උනේ. මතකද? නම් මට කොහෙද කියලා මතක නෑ. කුණු කන්දක් කඩාගෙන වැටුනේ. කඩාගෙන වන්නද මිනිස්සු යට උනේ කුණු කන්දකට. එතන ওই මීතේන් ගෑස් ඉන්න තමයි මේ දේ උනේ. හරිද? Right. Then next one, application of microorganisms in agriculture. Now you know, for agricultural purposes, we have to improve the yield. To get a good yield, we have to provide the soil, it should be nutrient rich soil should be there. හරිද? ඒකට අවශ්‍ය හොඳ සාරවත් පසක් තියෙනවා. It should be fertilized. මොනවද ඕනි nutrients? පසේ තියෙන ඕනි nutrients මොනවද හොඳ yield එකක් ගන්න නම්? It should contain phosphorus, nitrogen and potassium. හරිද? Okay? And also, to get a good yield, that relevant plant, it should be resistant to pests and diseases. And also it should tolerance to unfavorable conditions. So we can use microorganisms in agriculture for improving the yield, right? And agronomic characteristics such as improved nitrogen and phosphorus absorption, resistant to pest and disease, and tolerance to drought. හරිද? මොනවද agronomic characteristics කියන්නේ? Improving nitrogen absorption, resistance to pest and disease, and tolerance to drought. Those are agronomic characteristics. කියලා අපි කියනවා. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් හොඳ yield එකක් ගන්න ඕවා තියෙන්න ඕනේ. හරිද? Now, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium are the main nutrients required by plants. Even though 78% of atmosphere consists of nitrogen, but it is not available for the plants to absorb. නේද? ඒවා බොහොම අඩුවෙන් තියෙන්නේ. ඒ හින්දා ඒවා හොඳට උරා ගන්න තමයි අපිට මේ microorganisms ලා මෙතනදී ගස් වලට දෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒ කියන්නේ microorganisms ලා අපි use කරන්නේ. එතකොට පළවෙනි එක තමයි අපිට පුළුවන් biofertilizers හදන්න. Right? Biofertilizers. Biofertilizers කියන්නේ මොනවද? I told you nitrogen and phosphorus, they are the most limiting nutrient in soil for the plant growth and development. Right? So now what are we doing? We are adding chemicals. Chemicals containing nitrogen and phosphorus to the soil to improve the bioavailability of those nutrients. But the intensive or excessive use of these synthetic fertilizers, now these chemicals, they are synthetic, they are artificial. It can result in environmental problems, right? Such as like deprivation of soil and water quality. නේද? වතුර පාරකට කහුනොත් මොකද වෙන්නේ? වතුර වල quality එක අඩු වෙනවා. ඒක water pollution වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හරිද? ඊට පස්සේ ඉන්න සත්තුන්ට ඒක කරදරයක් වෙන්න පුළුවන් ඒගොල්ලන්ට. destroy වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ හින්දා මේ විදිහට synthetic fertilizers use කරන්නේ නැතුව ඒ වෙනුවට අපිට microorganisms ලා මේ cropping system එකට apply කරන විදිහ තමයි biofertilizers කියන්නේ. Right? මෙතනදී පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ අපි මේ microbial inoculants කියලා මේ biofertilizers වලට කියනවා. They can improve the bioavailability of nitrogen and phosphorus. First one is phosphate solubilizing bacteria and mycorrhizae. Right? Phosphate solubilizing bacteria and mycorrhizae. Now, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, ඒවා තමයි most limiting. Phosphorus is the most limiting nutrient among all the major plant nutrients. අඩුම තියෙන්නේ මොකද්ද? phosphorus. එයා තමයි limited වෙන්නේ. එතකොට ඕනෙම පහසක ඕනෙම පස් වර්ගයක තියෙන phosphorus ප්‍රමාණය හරිම අඩුයි. හරිද? එතකොට we can use phosphate solubilizing bacteria and mycorrhizae to improve the solubility of the phosphorus in the soil solution. Right? අපිට මේ phosphate solubilizing bacteria mycorrhizae පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. phosphate ඒ කියන්නේ මේ phosphorus වල solubility එක වැඩි කරන්න. හරිද? Now here what these phosphate solubilizing bacteria and mycorrhizae do to improve the solubility of phosphorus in soil solution. These bacteria and fungi, they release different organic acids. These organic acids, they can dissolve minerals containing phosphorus and they can chelate cationic partners of these phosphate ions. And they can release phosphorus to the soil solution. So now in the present, at present, in the markets, they have these microbial biofertilizers. මොනවද එහෙනම්? දැන් මොකක්ද අපි කරේ? ඇයි අපිට microorganisms ලවන්නේ උනේ? You know, to get a good yield, right? But we have to we are using microorganisms to improve the yield and agronomic characteristics such as absorption of nitrogen, phosphorus, and resistance to pests and diseases and tolerance to drought. So the first one is biofertilizers. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, those are limiting nutrients that are required by the soil, required for plant growth and development. But these fertilizers, right? Now, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, they are added as these chemicals are added, artificial chemicals are added to the soil to provide those nutrients for the plants. But excessive use of these synthetic fertilizers, they can cause both soil and water pollution. So instead of that, right, the scientists or they have provide attention to use microorganisms that can be applied to the cropping system to improve the bioavailability of this nitrogen and phosphorus. So these microinoculants are called what? Biofertilizers. The first example is phosphate solubilizing bacteria and mycorrhizae. These phosphate solubilizing bacteria and mycorrhizae, they secrete different kinds of organic acids which can increase the solubility of phosphorus in mineral salts containing phosphorus and chelate cationic partners of the phosphate ions. And thereby they release phosphorus into the soil solution, right? The second example is nitrogen fixing microorganisms. Even at the beginning of this lesson, you learn about free living nitrogen fixing bacteria and symbiotic nitrogen fixing bacteria. Right? Nitrogen fixing microorganism. What is nitrogen fixation? You know, 78% of atmosphere is composed of nitrogen, but it's not available for the plants. So we have to make it available for the plant. Biological nitrogen fixation, it is a process where these microorganisms convert atmospheric molecular nitrogen into a soluble form, right? So this soluble form of nitrogen can be used by plants directly or converted into their desired soluble forms of nitrogen. First one, symbiotic nitrogen fixing microorganism. Example is Rhizobium species. That day also we learned about this one. Rhizobium species. Symbiotic means there are two species, two partners. First example is Rhizobium species, which is in symbiotic relationship with legume plants. Katuru murunga, legume plants වල මුල් එක associate වෙලා ඉන්න Rhizobium කියන bacteria. හරිද? They fix nitrogen, right? The fixed nitrogen is released to the soil when the plant dies. And then that nitrogen is available for the other plants. In the market, there are various Rhizobium inoculations. The second example is nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria. Anabenine azolla මතකද කියලා දුන්නා. Azolla කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? Aquatic pterophyte එක. Right? Anabenine is a cyanobacteria. There is a symbiotic association with this water fern like Azolla, right? So normally now this Anabenine azolla, this symbiotic nitrogen fixation, this system is used in rice cultivation. හරිද? අර කුඹුරු වල මැද අර ගලන ඇල නිකන් වතුර පාර දෙන්නේ. ඒක මොකද කරන්නේ? මේ ඇක්වටික්ස් මේ ප්ලාන්ට් එක. එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ ඇසෝලා කියන ස්පීෂීස් එක වගා කරනවා. එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඒකත් එක්ක ඇසෝෂියේට් වෙලා ඉන්නවා කවුද? ඇනබෙනා. ඒගොල්ලන්ට පුළුවන් නයිට්‍රජන් ෆික්ස් කරන්න. ඒ ෆික්ස් කරන නයිට්‍රජන් කවුද ගන්න? ඒක අපිට පැඩි ෆීල්ඩ් එකට දෙන්න පුළුවන්. right? ඊළඟ එක තමයි free living nitrogen fixing microorganism. Best example is Acetobacter. Right? Acetobacter is a free living nitrogen fixing bacteria. It present in high concentration in the rhizosphere. Rhizosphere means the soil surrounding the root surface. හරිද? right. අපි බලමු note එක. Biofertilizers. Nitrogen and phosphorus are the most limiting nutrients in soil for plant growth and development. Therefore, chemical fertilizers are applied to the soil to remove bioavailability of these nutrients. However, intensive use of synthetic fertilizers may result in environmental problems such as deprivation of soil and water quality. Hence, much attention has been given for microorganisms that can be applied into the cropping system to improve the bioavailability of nitrogen and phosphorus. These microbial inoculants are called biofertilizers. First one, part A, phosphate solubilizing bacteria and mycorrhizae. Phosphorus, it is the most limiting nutrient among all major plant nutrients. Bioavailability of phosphorus in any type of soil, it is negligible, right? Very low amount of phosphorus applied to the soil remain available for plants. Phosphate solubilizing bacteria and mycorrhizae contributes in improving the solubility of phosphorus in the soil solution. These bacteria and fungi secrete organic acids that dissolve minerals containing phosphorus and chelate cationic partners of the phosphorus ions, thereby release the phosphorus into the soil solution. At present, commercial formulation of biofertilizers are available in the market. Then, nitrogen fixing microorganism. Biological nitrogen fixation is a process where microorganisms convert atmospheric molecular nitrogen into its soluble form. These soluble forms of nitrogen can be assimilated by some plants directly or converted into desirable forms of nitrogen. Number 1, symbiotic nitrogen fixation. Example 1, Rhizobium species with leguminous plants. Right? So when the plant die, they release the nitrogen to the soil, and then it is available for the other plants. Second example is nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria anabena, which is in symbiotic relationship with Azolla fern. So this system, it is used in rice cultivation in countries. Then free living example is Acetobacter, which is present in high concentration in rhizosphere. Rhizosphere means the soil surrounding the root surfaces. Then the next one is plant growth promoting bacteria. Again, hormones. Then plant growth, what are the hormones that cause growth of plant? Auxins, cytokinin. ඔයා මොකද කරන්නේ? plant growth එක promote කරනවා. නේද? එතකොට මෙන්න මේ බැක්ටීරියා Pseudomonas, Acetobacter කියන කට්ටිය මොකද කරන්නේ? මෙන්න මේ plant growth hormones produce කරනවා. Right? බලන්න Pseudomonas pudea, fluorescence, auxin කියන එක හදනවා. මේ නම් පාඩම් කරන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. එතකොට microorganisms ලා bacteria produce කරන hormones මොනවද? Auxin, cytokinin and gibberellin. හරිද? නම් පාඩම් කරන්න ඕනි නැහැ. දැන් අපි මෙච්චරලා කතා කරේ biofertilizers විදියට පාවිච්චි කරන විදිය. ඊළඟට අපිට පුළුවන් මේ microorganisms ලව biopesticide එකක් විදියට පාවිච්චි කරන්න. Normally, what is a pesticide, Nisma? What is a pesticide? Pesticide එකක් කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? Pesticides මොකටද පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ? Right, very good. Now we use pesticides to control insects. But දැන් මෙහෙම හැමදාම එක හිතන්න මොකෙක් හරි ෆ්ලයි කෙරේට ගහන එකක් කියලා. එකපාර මේ ෆාම මොකද කරන්නේ? එකපාර දෙන්නම් ඔක්කොටම වැඩි කියලා වැඩිපුර දෙනවා. ලොකු ඩෝසේජ් එකකින්. මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඕනකට අනවශ්‍ය විදියට යූස් කරනවා. එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? එයාගේ අර ෆ්ලයිගේ නැත්තම් ඉන්සෙක්ට්ගේ ඇඟ ඇතුලේ අරවට ඔරොත්තු දෙන විදිහේ ජීන්ස් හැදෙනවා. එතකොට තව දුරටත් අපි මේ ඒ පෙස්ටිසයිඩ් එක යූස් කරා කියලා ඉන්සෙක්ටිසයිඩ් එක යූස් කරා කියලා එයා ඩිස්ට්‍රොයි වෙනවද නැහැ. එයා මොකද කරන්නේ? එයා රෙසිස්ටන්ස් හදා ගන්නවා. ඒකට අනුව ජීවත් වෙන. ඒකට රෙසිස්ටන්ස් හදා ගන්නවා. හරිද? එතකොට ඔන්න ඔය විදිහට normally we use synthetic or chemicals pesticide that we in the present we are using different kinds of artificial pesticides. හරිද? නැතුව මේ ගස්වල කොටල එහෙම pesticides හදාගන්නේ නැහනේ. හරිද? එහෙම හදන ක්‍රම තියෙනවා. but අපි මොකද කරන්නේ? කෙලින්ම අර කඩෙන් ගේන මොකක් හරි chemical එකක් ගහලා සත්තු ටික මරනවා. But the overuse of these pesticides, it develop resistance against the pesticides among the pest. Then it's a big question. It's a big problem. Right? Therefore, it is important to use environmental friendly and less toxic alternative strategies that we can use. We can use environmental friendly, less toxic alternatives instead of these pesticides. Right? These synthetic chemicals. So an example for use of microorganism for this is entomopathogenic fungi. එතකොට අර synthetic chemicals වෙනකොට දැන් මොකද කරන්නේ? microorganisms ලා අපිට පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. පළවෙනි example එක තමයි entomopathogenic fungi. Entomopathogenic fungi means, right? This fungi, it can infect a broad range of insects and they can cause the death of them. And these fungi, they are formulated into microinsecticides. One example is Bacillus thuringiensis. No, that is an example for the entomopathogenic bacteria. Then මම කලින් කිව්වේ entomopathogenic fungi. Entomopathogenic bacteria කෙනෙක් තමයි Bacillus thuringiensis. අර BTI toxins කියලා ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඉගෙන ගන්නේ unit 7 එකේදී එහෙම. හරිද? මේගොල්ලෝ මොකද කරන්නේ? They produce different toxins which are toxic for the larvae, insect larvae. හරිද? BTI. So proteins, like they produce protein crystals. Right? The protein crystals produced by this bacteria, they are toxic to the larvae. This is called BT toxin. So after ingestion, this toxin, හරිද? මේගොල්ලෝ හදන protein crystals වගේ. මේ බැක්ටීරියා එක. ඒක toxic. insect අර මේ ඒක ගත්තාම මොකද වෙන්නේ? එයාගේ දැන් after ingestion, right? This toxin is dissolved and it can lyse the tissues of the guts of the larvae. Right? So, majority of these biopesticide formulations currently in use is the BT toxin. හරිද? තේරෙනවද කියන දේවල්? දැන් ඉස්සෙල්ලාම දෙවෙනියට අපි microorganisms ලා use කරන එක තමයි biopesticides. එහෙම නැත්නම් biocontrol agents කියනවා. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් දැන් කියන්නේ කුමිනාශක කියලා ගහන්නේ මොනවද? chemicals ගෙනල්ලානේ ගහන්නේ. artificial synthetic chemicals. ඕනවරඩා මේවා ගැහුවා මොකද වෙන්නේ? අර ඉන්න සත්තු ඒකට resistance වෙනවා. resistant වෙනවා. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ඇඟේ genes හැදෙනවා ඒකට resistant වෙන්න. හරිද? එතකොට ඒක ගැහුවෙන් පස්සේ ආය දුරටත් ඒගොල්ලන්ව විනාශ කරන්න බෑ. ඊට අමතරව දැන් මේවා ගහලා මොකද වෙන්නේ? soil pollution වෙනවා. water pollution, right? එහෙනම් ඊට පස්සේ මිනිස් ඕක ගහන මනුස්සයටත් ඕක හොඳ නෑ. යාට ලෙඩ හැදෙන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙනම් අපි මෙහෙම මේ පාවිච්චි කරන හැබැයි ඉතින් pest ලවත් අපි control කරන්න ඕනනේ. එහෙනම් අපි පාවිච්චි කරන මේ pesticides මොනවද වෙන්නේ? They should be environmental friendly and less toxic. එතකොට එහෙම use කරන්න පුළුවන් જાතියක් තමයි මේ biopesticides කියන්නේ. Biopesticides විදිහට අපි මෙතනදී use කරන්නේ කවුද? Microorganisms ලා. එහෙම examples තමයි entomopathogenic fungi and entomopathogenic bacteria. Entomopathogenic fungi කරන්නේ මොකද්ද? ඒගොල්ලන්ට පුළුවන් chromio, like they can infect a broad range of insects and they can kill them. An example for entomopathogenic bacteria is Bacillus thuringiensis. අර mosquitoes ලා එහෙම මේ control කරන්න BTI පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ soya plants වලට එහෙම ගහනවා කියන්නේ. අහලා තියෙනවද? මෙතනදී වෙන්නේ this Bacillus thuringiensis it produce BT toxins, right? Protein crystals, they are protein crystals. They are toxic to the larvae, insect larvae, when ingested. So after the ingestion, these BT toxins they dissolve and they can lyse the tissues of the guts of the larvae and destroy them. Right? හරිද? ඒක තේරුණාද? ඊළඟට composting. Composting එක නම් අහලා තියෙනවා. Composting කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? Composting means like it can convert plant remains into natural humans. මේක aerobic or anaerobic? This is aerobic. නේද? අපි මුලදී කතා කරන්නේ. Composting it takes place in the presence of oxygen in an oxygenic environment. So this is aerobic. හරිද? This is done by a mixed population of microbes. Right? Mixed population. It may be bacteria, fungi. ඒක තමයි mixed population එක කියන්නේ. හරිද? ඉස්සෙල්ලාම මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ? Thermophilic bacteria. Thermophilic කියන්නේ ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉන්නේ ලොකු high temperatures වල. Like 55 to 60 degrees Celsius වලදී. Right? So thermophilic in the initial step, this thermophilic bacteria, which is on the plant remains, it increases the temperature of the file to 55 to 60 degrees Celsius. And they dominate this degradation process for few days. With the time, what happens? This temperature drops. හරිද? temperature අඩු වෙනකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? අර ලොකු temperatures වල survive වෙන thermophilic bacteria තවත් එතන ඉන්න පුළුවන්ද? බෑ. So that thermophilic microbial population it will be replaced by mesophilic microbial population. හරිද? mesophilic microbial population එක ඇවිල්ලා එතන දැන් ඒගොල්ලෝ තමයි ඒකේ නිකන් අයිතිකාරයෝ වගේ ඉන්නේ. thermophilic කට්ටියව replace කරලා. හරිද? ඊට පස්සේ දැන් මේ process එක අපි තව enhance කරන්නේ කොහොමද? හොඳට moisture දෙනවා. අර compost හදද්දි දැකලා ඉතින් වතුර එහෙම දානවානේ දවස් කිහිපයකට සැරයක් compost හදද්දි වතුර දානවා. To what? To provide sufficient amount of moisture. ඊට පස්සේ ඔයක පෙරලනවා නේද? අර ෆයිල් එක එහෙමම තියන්නේ පොඩ්ඩක් පෙරලනවා. කුණු ටික පෙරලනවා. ඇයි ඒ? හොඳට ඇතුළට ඔක්සිජන් දෙන්නයි. මේ compost හැදෙන්නේ මොනවද? oxygenic environment එකේ. එහෙනම් ඇතුළේ ඔක්සිජන් තියෙනවා. හරිද? ඊළඟට දැන් මෙතන මම බැක්ටීරියා ගැන විතරනේ කතා කරේ. අපි කිව්වා mixed population of microbes කියලා. එහෙනම් මේකට එනවා fungus. ඊට පස්සේ actinomycetes, protozoa, right? Filamentous bacteria. They also can break down organic matter into compost. හරිද? හරි නේද? Composting. What is this takes place in an oxygenic environment. That means aerobic conditions are required for this one. Here what happened? They break down in composting, right? They break down organic material into natural humus by microbial degradation. Who are the microorganisms participate for this one? A mixed population of microorganisms participate for this one. It can be bacteria or fungi, right? So initially, right, thermophilic bacteria, which remained on the plant, they increase the temperature of the pile to 55 to 60 degrees Celsius and carry out the degradation process for few days. And with the time, what happens? The temperature decreases. When the temperature decreases, right, these thermophilic bacteria are replaced by mesophilic bacteria. And also to enhance this process, we have to provide enough moisture and we have to provide oxygen by turning the pile. Right? So, bacteria, examples for the mixed population of microbes, bacteria, actinomycetes, then protozoa, right? එහෙම කට fungus ඔය කට්ටිය තමයි mixed population of microbes කියලා කියන්නේ. හරි නේද? හරිද? Right? So we discussed application of microorganisms in agriculture. කෘෂි කර්මාන්තයේ මේ microorganisms කොහොමද පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ? පළවෙනි ප්‍රශ්නේ අපිට තිබ්බේ මොකද්ද? nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium limited. soil වල තියෙන එක limited. එතකොට අපි මොකද්ද කරේ? chemicals add කරා. right? artificial chemicals අපි add කරා. හැබැයි ඕන ඒක එච්චර හොඳ නැහැ. මොකද ඒක water pollute වෙන්න පුළුවන්, soil pollution වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Right? When these chemicals get contaminated with water, it can cause different kinds of diseases. So instead of using those synthetic chemicals, we paid attention to use some like environmental friendly method. So the best option was microorganism. එහෙම හදපු කට්ටියට අපි එහෙම microorganisms ලා use කරාම මේ microbial inoculants වලට අපි කියනවා biofertilizers කියලා. First example is phosphate solubilizing bacteria and mycorrhizae. And the second one, nitrogen fixing microorganism. Nitrogen fixing microorganism can be again divided into two as free living and symbiotic nitrogen fixing microorganism. And also plant growth promoting bacteria. That is the third one. ඊට පස්සේ ඊළඟ එක තමයි biopesticides. You know, like we have to improve the soil. We have to make the soil nutrient rich, right? And also we have to control the pesticides. The pest, we have to control them. To control the pest, we have to use pesticides. Normally we are using synthetic or chemicals, artificially produced chemicals to kill these insects. But excessive use of these chemicals can develop resistance against pesticides among the insects. And also, this is not environmental friendly and toxic, right? So instead of these chemicals, synthetic pesticides, we can use environmental friendly and less toxic alternative strategies. The best example is here we can use microorganisms, entomopathogenic fungi and entomopathogenic bacteria. Entomopathogenic fungi, they can infect a broad range of insects and they can kill those insects. Entomopathogenic bacteria, best example is Bacillus thuringiensis. They produce BTI toxin, protein crystals. When larvae, it is toxic for the larvae of insect. When the larvae ingest that, it dissolves and it lies the internal tissues of the gut, right? Yeah. And the third one is composting. Composting takes place in an aerobic condition, right? Mixed population of microbes are used here. Here what happens, it converts plant remains into natural humans. Initially, this pile, right? Pile, it is dominated by thermophilic bacteria and they increase the temperature to, right? So they can, initially this is dominated by thermophilic bacteria and they increase the temperature 55 to 60 degrees Celsius and they carry out those initial steps, degradation of those plant remains into humans. After that, after a few days, what happens? Its temperature decreases. When the temperature decreases, these thermophilic bacteria are replaced by mesophilic bacteria. And also to enhance this process, we have to provide sufficient amount of moisture. Since this takes place in aerobic condition, there should be enough amount of oxygen. So we have to turn the pipe, right? Yes. So that's it. We'll go through the note now. Composting. Composting is a process used to convert plant remains into the equivalent of natural humus by microbial degradation. Degradation of organic matter by a mixed population of microbes under warm, moist, and aerobic conditions. Initial activity of thermophilic bacteria on the plant remains increased temperature of the pile to 55 to 60 degrees Celsius. As a result, thermophilic bacteria dominate in the degradation process for few days. When the temperature decreases over time, thermophilic microbial population is replaced by mesophilic microbial population. The process can be enhanced by addition of moisture and supply of oxygen through turning the pipe. In addition to bacteria, microbes such as fungus and actinomycetes and protozoa also contribute to the breakdown of organic matter into compost. හරිද? මේකෙන් essay එකක් එන්න පුළුවන් සමහර විට short essay එකක්. Right? ඊළඟට now we are going to learn about the nature, distribution and role of microorganisms. Right? Yes. So now if we take soil, it provides adequate physical and chemical environment for the growth of microorganisms. Right? Provides space, nutrients, right? Now if we come to nutrients, can be minerals, they provide organic materials, water, then gases like carbon dioxide, oxygen, nitrogen, right? Yes. Now, look at this one. මේ තියෙන්නේ නිකන් පස් කුට්ටියක්. හරිද? උඩම ලේයර් ඉතින් අර තනකොළ එහෙම තියෙනවා. දැන් මේ පහළට යනකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? මේ උඩම ලේයර්ස් ටිකේ මේ පහළට යනකොට මම කියන්නේ මේ උඩ, ඒ කියන්නේ මේ තනකොළත් එක්ක තියෙන උඩ ලේයර් එකේ චුට්ටක් පහළට. ඒ කියන්නේ සෙන්ටිමීටර්ස් කිහිපයක් ගැඹුරට ගත්තාම මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඒකේ තියෙන oxygen amount එක, moisture, light, nutrition, right? They are different. So it increases the diversity of the soil microorganism. හරිද? මේ උඩ ලේයර් ගත්තොත් පස් තට්ටුවක උඩ top few centimeters ගත්තොත් ඒකේ වැඩිපුරම ඉන්නේ මොකද? බැක්ටීරියා. හරිද? පහළට යනකොට පහළට එන්න මොකද වෙන්නේ? Right? This microbial number declines. Right? With increasing depth, right? With increasing depth, the microbial number declines rapidly. ඔන්න හොඳ කතාවක් දැන් තියෙනවා. Nisma, can you hear me? Right? Then ඉස්සර අපි දැන් ඔය ඉතිහාසය එහෙම ඉගෙන ගන්නකොට right? කොහොමද කියන්නේ? ඉතිහාසය අපිට උගන්වනවාද මේ ලංකාවේ හිටපු farmersලා මෙහෙම මේ ගෙනල්ලා chemicals ගැහුවා කියලා හිතවන්න නෑ. එහෙම එකක් නෑනේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ අර නගුල මීහරක් එහෙම පාවිච්චි කළා තමයි පොළව කොටලා එහෙම හිටෙව්වේ. හැබැයි දැන් ආයෙත් එහෙම කරන්න පුළුවන්ද? නෑ බෑ. ඇයි බෑනේ? දැන් මීහරක් දාලාද මේ කුඹුරු හාන්න ඒවා කරන්නේ නැහැ. මොනවද අර තලි ලොකු ට්‍රැක්ටර් දාලා නේද? එතකොට ඒ වගේ මොකද වෙන්නේ? අර යටම තියෙන පස් තට්ටුව උස්සලා අරගෙන උඩට දානවා. right? යටම තියෙන පස් තට්ටුව උස්සලා තමයි උඩට දාන්නේ. එතකොට පැල වැවෙන්නේ කොහෙද? අර යටින් එන පස් තට්ටුවේ. ඒකේ ඉන්නවද එතකොට මයික්‍රෝऑर्गेनिजम्स ලා? ඒකේ මයික්‍රෝऑर्गेनिजम्स ලා නෑ. දැන් අපි ඉගෙන ගත්තා. When with the increasing depth, the microbial number rapidly decline. ගැඹුර යටට යනකොට ගැඹුර වැඩි වෙනකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? මේකේ ඉන්න මයික්‍රෝऑर्गेनिजम्स ලා ගන්න අඩු වෙනවා. right? එහෙනම් ඒ ගහකට අවශ්‍ය නියුට්‍රියන්ට්ස් දෙන්න, ඒ අවශ්‍ය නයිට්‍රජන්, ફોස්ෆරස් ඒවා දෙන්න මයික්‍රෝऑर्गेनिजम्स ලා ඉන්නවද අර යටම පස්තට්ටුවේ නැහැ. ඒක තමයි දැන් ලංකාවේ හැමතැනටම කිමිකල්ස් නැතුව ගහක් පෙලක් හිටව ගන්න බැරි. හොඳ යීල්ඩ් එකක් ගන්න බැරි. ඇයි අර ලොකු ට්‍රැක්ටර් අරව මේව දාලා මොකද කරන්නේ? අර යටම තියෙන පස්තට්ටු උස්සලා උඩට දානවා. තේරුණාද? ඒකෙන් ඔයගලන්ට ඒක මතක තියාගන්න පුළුවන්. ඊළඟට now I told you this few centimeters of this soil, it contains the largest community of bacteria. Right? වැඩිපුරම microflora එකේ ඉන්නේ මොකද? bacteria. Other than that, also contain fungi, then algae, protozoa, actinomycetes. Actinomycetes means filamentous bacteria. Right? Then these microorganisms, they play major role in this decomposition of complex substances and also in recycling elements in the biogeochemical cycles. හරිද? මේගොල්ලෝ මොකද කරන්නේ? මේගොල්ලෝ අර decompose, ඒ කියන්නේ තියෙන complex ඒවා decompose කරන එක. ඊට පස්සේ දැන් අපි ගත්තොත් elements එහෙම. ඒවා අලුතින් එන්නේ නැහැ නේ. තියෙන ටිකමනේ. තේරුණාද? ඒවා recycle කර ආයෙ අලුතින් අපිට දෙනවා. ආයෙ දෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ ගහකින් උරා ගන්නවා, ගහ මැරුණාම ඒ ටික ගහෙන් ඒගොල්ලෝ decompose කරලා ආයෙ පොළවට එකතු කරලා ආයෙ තව කාට හරි දෙනවා. හරි? ඒ වගේ රීසයිකල් කරනවා. ඔන්න ඔහොම කර මේගොල්ලෝ මොකද කරන්නේ? ඒ කියන්නේ soil microorganisms ලගේ රෝල් එක තමයි ඒක. Decomposition of complex organic substance and participate in cycling the elements in biogeochemical cycles. right අපි බලමු note එක. මෙන්න මේ චූටි කැලෙන් ඔයගලන්ට essay එකක් එන්න පුළුවන්. Explain the nature, distribution and role of microorganisms. right? Soil provides an adequate physical and chemical environment for growth of microorganisms in terms of space and nutrients, which include minerals, decomposing organic materials, water, gases such as carbon dioxide, oxygen, and nitrogen. Within a few centimeter depth of soil, there are different amounts of oxygen, moisture, light, and nutrition, increasing the diversity of soil microorganisms. The top few centimeters of the soil contains the largest community of bacteria. Microbial number declines rapidly with increasing depth. Majority of soil microflora is represented by bacteria. In addition, there are fungi, algae, protozoa, and actinomycetes. Actinomycetes, despite of being a member of domain bacteria, usually it is mentioned separately due to their significances. These microorganisms play a major role in decomposition of complex organic substances and participate in cycling of elements in biogeochemical cycles. Elements are oxidized and reduced by microorganisms for their metabolic requirements. හරිද? right. පළවෙනි එක දැන් අපි ඉගෙන ගන්න මේකේ mineralization. Mineralization means the decomposition of plants and animal residue by the extracellular enzymes of these bacteria and fungi. Right? These bacteria and fungi, they release different kinds of extracellular enzymes and they decompose plant and animal residue. හරිද? දැන් එහෙම නොකරනම් මොකද වෙන්නේ? මැරෙන සත්තුයි ඊට පස්සේ මැරෙන ගහකොළන් ඔක්කොම මොකද වෙන්නේ? මේ පෘථුවිය එකට එකතු accumulate වෙනවා. එතකොට ජීවත් වෙලා ඉන්න අයට හොඳට ඉන්න ඉඩක් තියනවද? නැහැ. නේද? එහෙම දෙයක් නොවුන නම් ඒක ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක්. පෘථුවිය කෙනෙම කුණු ගොඩක් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. right? So these enzymes, these extracellular enzymes secreted by bacteria and fungi, they can break down complex molecules into simple inorganic materials like carbon dioxide and H2O, right? And they made available those plant nutrients. They recycle those nutrients, right? So this mineralization, it helps in two ways. It helps to remove plant and animal debris from the earth's surface, allowing other organisms to live. And also it recycles minerals which are found in limited quantities on the earth. පළවෙනි එක තමයි mineralization. What is mineralization? Mineralization means decomposition of plant and animal residue by using extracellular enzymes of bacteria and fungi. So these enzymes, they can break down complex organic materials into simple inorganic materials like carbon dioxide and H2O. This is the major process by which plant nutrients are made available and recycling. Mineralization helps in following ways. Helps to remove plant and animal debris from the earth's surface, allowing other organisms to live, and recycle minerals which are found in limited quantities on the earth. The second thing is carbon cycle. Role of microorganisms in the carbon cycle. Right? So now if we take organisms, right? All organisms, they contain what? Large amount of carbon. මේ ඇඟේ තියෙන මොනවද? Proteins, carbohydrates, මේ ඔක්කොම මොනවද? organic compounds. Organic compounds කියන්නේ මොනවද? ඒවා carbon තමයි තියෙන්නේ. Cellulose, starch, fat, right? මේකයි තියෙන්නේ මොනවද? Carbon. So the first step of this photosynthesis, the first steps of this carbon cycle is photosynthesis. Photosynthesis වලින් මොකද කරන්නේ? It fix the carbon නේද? Carbon fix කරන එකනේ කරන්නේ. Then respiration වලින් කරන්නේ මොකද? Carbon එළියට දානවා. Carbon dioxide විදියට. අපි photosynthesis පාඩමෙන් ඉගෙන ගන්නේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ carbon dioxide අරගෙන ගස් ඇතුලේ glucose විදියට fix කරනවා. So carbon fixing process. Right? So photosynthetic organisms like plants, cyanobacteria, algae, right? They fix carbon dioxide using energy from the sunlight. That is the first step of the carbon cycle. හරිද? දැන් මේ atmosphere එකේ තියෙනවා carbon dioxide. ඒවා මේ sunlight energy use කරලා මොකද කරන්නේ? ඒගොල්ලෝ ඇතුලේ fix කරගන්නවා. ඊට පස්සේ අනිත් organisms ලා heterotroph ලා ගත්තාම මොකද වෙන්නේ? Heterotroph means they can't produce their own food. They depend on these plants or photosynthetic organisms. ඒගොල්ලෝ මොකද කරන්නේ? They utilize these carbon sources. හරිද? So through the food chain, right? Food chain එකේ මොකක්ද ඉස්සෙල්ලාම තියෙනවා green plant. Then herbivore. ඊට පස්සේ ඔන්න carnivore, omnivore මේ විදිහට food chain එකේ මොකද වෙන්නේ? Food chain දිගේ මොනවද යන්නේ එතකොට? It transferred the carbon fixed from the carbon dioxide by autotroph from one level to another level through the food chain, right? And also these phototrophs as well as chemoheterotroph, they release a part of their fixed carbon dioxide to the atmosphere through respiration, right? Neither. Now, if we take us, අපි මොනවද කරන්නේ? ගස් වලින් එනවා මේ මොන කෑව එළවලුව පළතුරු ඒවා ඔක්කොම මොනවද? අපි ෆික්ස් කරලාද? නෑ. ඒ ගහ විසින් ෆික්ස් කරගත්තු එක. අපි ඕව කනවා. හරිද? අපි කාලා දැන් අපි මොකෙක් හරි කෑවොත් ආයෙත් ඒක ෆුඩ් චේන් එකක් වෙනවනේ. දැන් අපි මෙහෙම හිතමු මොන ගහක් තියෙනවා and there's a worm, right? Then there's a cock and a human. Worm මොකද කරන්නේ? එයා ඔන්න ගහ කනවා. ඊට පස්සේ ඒකව කුකුලා කනවා. කුකුලාව මිනිහා කනවා. හරිද? අන්න ෆුඩ් චේන් එක. අර ගහ ෆික්ස් කරගත්තු කාබන් ටික අර lower trophic level එකේ ඉඳන් higher trophic level එක වෙන අපි ගාවට ඇවිත් තියෙනවා. ඊට අමතරව දැන් ඔය ඇඟේ මේ ස්ටෝර් වෙලා තියෙන කාබන් වලට අමතරව කොටසක් අපි ආපහු respiration විදිහට එළියට විසික් කරනවා නේද? During respiration, carbon dioxide removed from our body. ඒ carbon dioxide කියන්නේ මොනවද? අර මේ ගස් වලින් ෆික්ස් කරගත්තු carbon dioxide න තමයි. හරිද? ඒ carbon dioxide ටික ආපහු මේ photosynthesis වලින් මේ ගස් වල ෆික්ස් කරගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක තේරෙනවනේ? නේද? carbon dioxide ටික මොකද වෙන්නේ? atmosphere එකට යනවා. atmosphere එකේ ඉන්න carbon dioxide ටික ආයි ගස් වලින් පාවිච්චි කරලා ආයි ඒක ෆික්ස් කරලා ආයි අපිට කන්න කැම් දෙනවා. right? ඊට පස්සේ and also you know like undigested food, it is released to the environment as feces. Then the fecal matter එක විදියට අයින් වෙනවා. undigested food. එතකොට ඒව මොකද වෙන්නේ? microorganisms ලා ඒව decay කරනවා. හරිද? ඉතිරි ටික carbon dioxide විදිහට එළියට යන්නෙත් නැහැ. ඊට පස්සේ fecal matter විදිහට අයින් වෙන්නෙත් නැති. ඊට පස්සේ අපේ ඇඟේ ස්ටෝර් වෙලා තියෙන කාබන් ටික මොකද වෙන්නේ? අපි ජීවත් වෙලා ඉන්නකන් ඒවා අපේ ඇඟේ තියෙනවා. මැරුණාම මොකද වෙන්නේ? Once the organism dead, right? Those organic compounds are decomposed by the microorganisms and carbon dioxide is returned back to the atmosphere. Right? Yes, Abhibalo. All organisms contain large amount of carbon in organic compounds such as cellulose, starch, and proteins and fat. Photosynthesis is the important first step in carbon cycle, in which atmospheric inorganic carbon dioxide is reduced or fixed to the form organic compounds by photosynthetic organisms. For autotrophs such as plants, cyanobacteria, algae and photosynthetic bacteria fix carbon dioxide using energy from the sunlight. Chemoheterotrophs such as animals and protozoa depend on organic compounds produced by autotrophs to utilize them as their carbon source. Through the food chain, carbon fixed from carbon dioxide by autotrophs transferred from organisms at lower trophic level to the organisms at higher trophic levels. Both autotrophs and chemoheterotrophs release a part of their fixed carbon as carbon dioxide to the atmosphere through respiration. This carbon dioxide is again made available for autotrophs. In chemoheterotrophs, undigested food is released to the environment as feces, which is later decomposed by soil microorganisms. Rest of the carbon fixed in organisms remain within them until they die. Once the organisms are dead, these organic compounds are decomposed and carbon dioxide is returned back to the atmosphere. Microorganisms, mainly bacteria and fungi, play a major role in organic matter decomposition. Microorganisms play another major role in carbon cycle in relation to methane gas. Ocean sediments contain large amount of methane. However, about 80% of methane generated within ocean is consumed by microorganisms called methanotrophs before it reaches to the atmosphere. Despite of the above, methanogenic bacteria in the ocean's depth are constantly producing more methane. හරිද? ඊළඟට අපිට තියෙනවා nitrogen cycle, right? We have nitrogen cycle. So this is just a flow chart, right? Yeah, is it clear? This is my flow chart, right? So I used to study this one, right? Microorganisms in nitrogen cycle. There is a very high probability of getting a question regarding nitrogen cycle in this time, right? Nitrogen cycle එක හරි carbon cycle එක හරි අහන්න පුළුවන්, right? Then before that we'll go through this flow chart. But nitrogen in atmosphere එක fix කරනවා, right? Fix කරන මේ ගේන්නේ මෙතන ammonia වලට ගේනවා. කියන්නේ N2 is converted into ammonia or ammonium plus. Then nitrosomonas, it converts into nitrites, and nitrobacter convert into, like here nitrite, here nitrate. හරිද? ඒක තමයි මේ තියෙන්නේ, right? බලමු. Now nitrogen in the atmosphere, the percentage of nitrogen is N2. Molecular nitrogen is 80% or 78%, right? But it is not available for organism. You know, like if we take a molecular nitrogen, there is a triple bond, right? To break that bond, high amount of energy is needed, right? So this N2 is, even though 78% of atmosphere is composed of this nitrogen, it is not bioavailable, right? It's not bioavailable for the organism. එහෙනම් අර ගස් වලට උච්චර මේ microorganisms ලගෙන් උදව් ඉල්ල දඟලන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. ඒ ඔක්කොම තිබ්බනම්. තේරෙනවද? අපි එහෙම පෝර දාන්න ඕනේ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Right? So, like certain group of microorganisms, they can fix this molecular nitrogen into available forms of nitrogen like ammonia, nitrate, and nitrite. Right? This nitrogen cycle we can describe in 4 steps: ammonification, nitrification, denitrification, and nitrogen fixation. First step, ammonification, right? In the soil, 90% of organic nitrogen exists as what? As proteins, right? So proteins from dead plant and animals are decomposed by what? By the extracellular proteolytic enzyme secreted by microorganism and convert it into what? Ammonia. තේරුණාද? දැන් සත්තුන්ගේ ඇඟේ මොනවද? proteins තියෙනවා. proteins වල මොනවද තියෙන්නේ? nitrogen. එතකොට microorganisms ට release කරන extracellular enzymes නිසා මොකද වෙන්නේ? මේ proteins convert into ammonia. හරිද? sorry, amino acids. proteins වල මොනම එක amino acid not ammonia. amino acids වලට මේක කැඩෙනවා. මේ amino acids ටික microorganisms ලා මොකද කරන්නේ? ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ cell එක ඇතුළට අරගෙන cell එක ඇතුලේ ammonification කරනවා. ammonification කියන්නේ ammonification වලදී කරන්නේ අර amino acid එකේ amino group එක තියෙනවනේ. that amino group is converted into ammonia. හරිද? it's converted into ammonia. ඊට පස්සේ ඔන්න soil වලට release කරාම in the moist soil this ammonia is solubilized in water and from ammonia NH3 වතුරේ දිය වෙලා මොකද කරන්නේ? NH4+ හදනවා. මෙන්න මේ NH4+ තමයි ගස් වලින් පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. තේරුණාද? ammonification කියන්නේ ඒක. Now if we take like the organic nitrogen, 90% of organic nitrogen in soil exists as proteins. So protein from dead plant and animals are decomposed by the extracellular proteolytic enzyme secreted by the microorganism and converted into amino acids. Those amino acids are taken into the microbial cell and they convert that amino group of the amino acid into ammonia and release it into the environment. In the environment, in the soil, right, it's solubilized in water and form NH4+. That NH4+ is absorbed by plants, right? The second step is nitrification. Nitrification means the oxidation of ammonium ion to produce nitrate. Nitrification කියන්නේ මෙතන හැදෙන ammonium ion එකේ nitrogen nitrate වලට oxidize වෙන එක. හරිද? Now this takes place in two steps. Steps දෙකකින් තමයි වෙන්නේ. හරිද? This is done by nitrifying bacteria. In the first step, NH4+ is converted into nitrate. මේ බලන්න. මෙන්න මේ තියෙන්නේ. This one. Here, NH4+ is converted into nitrite. Nitrosomonas කියන bacteria තමයි මේක කරන්නේ aerobic. In the second step, this nitrite is converted into nitrate. This is done by nitrobacter, right? Nitrobacter. හරි නේද? එතකොට මේ nitrosomonas, nitrobacter කියන දෙන්නම මොකද? Chemo autotrophs ලා. So plants, they can utilize these nitrogen sources and they can, they use these nitrites and nitrates. The third step is denitrification. Denitrification means in the absence of atmospheric oxygen, some microorganisms, they use nitrates and reduce it into N2. ඔය මහා නරක microorganisms ලා ඉන්නවා ඒගොල්ලෝ මොකද කරන්නේ? atmospheric oxygen නැති තැන් වල තියෙන මේ nitrate ටික reduce කරනවා අපහු N2 වලට. දැන් බොහොම අමාරුවෙන් අර N2 තිබ්බ ටික දැන් අපිට ඕනේ අර N2 ඕන තරම් atmosphere එකේ තියෙනවනේ. ඒ ටික අරගෙන ගස් වලට දෙන්න. එහෙම හදපු මේ මොනවද nitrate ටිකත් මේගොල්ලෝ මොකද කරන්නේ? ආපහු අනිත් පැත්තට යවුවා. N2 වලට යවුවා. Right? මේක වෙන්නේ anaerobic conditions and this is a disadvantage. Right? මේක හොඳටම වෙන තැන් තමයි waterlogged soils. Right? In waterlogged soil, there are limited oxygen presence, so this denitrification takes place. මේක කරන මහා නරක microorganisms ලා තමයි Pseudomonas species and Theobacillus denitrificans. They convert nitrate into nitrite and nitrite into nitrous oxide and nitrous oxide into nitrogen gas. And the final step is nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation means the conversion of nitrogen gas, atmospheric nitrogen gas, into ammonia. You know, there are two types of bacteria, these two types of microorganism, free living nitrogen fixing and symbiotic nitrogen fixing microorganisms. එතකොට මේක කරන්නේ මොකද්ද? එන්සයිම් එක පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ අර හෙටරොසිස්ට් ඇතුලේ තිබ්බේ nitrogenase. Nitrogenase enzyme is it is inactivated by oxygen. That's why that cyanobacteria they contain that nitrogenase within heterocyst. Heterocyst වල මොනවද තියෙන්නේ? thick wall එකක් නේ තිබ්බේ. Right. Free living nitrogen fixing bacteria වලට example එකක් තමයි මොකද්ද? Rhizosphere එකේ ඉන්න Acetobacter. Rhizosphere means the soil which surrounding the plant root immediately. අර මුලත් ගාවින්ම යන soil ටිකට තමයි අපි rhizosphere කියන්නේ. හරිද? ඊළඟට nostoc. Nostoc is a cyanobacteria. Right? nostoc ගාව තමයි අර heterocyst එහෙම තිබ්බේ. ඊළඟට Acetobacter species, they have a high rate of aerobic respiration. Right? ඊළඟට high rate of aerobic respiration. Then cyanobacteria ඒගොල්ලෝ ගාව තියෙන මොනවද? heterocyst තියෙනවා. මේ process එක හොඳ efficiently කරගෙන යන්න. Right? ඊළඟට anaerobic bacteria කෙනෙක් වෙන Clostridium species, they also can do nitrogen fixation. Right? Clostridium means obligate anaerobic microorganism, bacteria. Second type is symbiotic nitrogen fixing microorganism. What is the example? Anabena azolla ගැන අපි කතා කරා. Then තව එක්කෙනෙක් ගැන අපි කිව්වා. කවුද? Rhizobium associated with legume plant roots. නේද? ඊට පස්සේ lichens, fungus and then algae or cyanobacteria, they also can fix nitrogen. Right? හරි. අපි note එක කියමු. Any doubts? Role of microorganisms. Ammonification. More than 90% of organic nitrogen in the soil exist as proteins. Proteins from dead plants and animals are decomposed by extracellular proteolytic enzymes secreted by microorganisms into amino acids. Resulting amino acids are taken into microbial cells and are then subjected to ammonification, in which amino groups of amino acids are converted into ammonia. In moist soil, ammonia is solubilized in water to form ammonium ions. These ammonium ions are utilized by plants and soil microorganisms. Ammonia in dry soil rapidly disappears into the atmosphere. This is ammonification. Right? Then nitrification, it is the process of oxidation of nitrogen in ammonium ion into nitrate. This process is done by nitrifying bacteria living in soil in two stages. In the first stage, which the microorganism involves nitrosomonas, it can convert NH4 plus into NO2 minus. In the second stage, microorganisms such as Nitrobacter oxidizes nitrite into nitrate. Plants uses nitrate as their source of nitrogen. Therefore, microorganisms play essential roles in providing nitrogen in bioavailable forms for plants and animals. Denitrification. In the absence of atmospheric oxygen, some microorganisms use nitrate and reduces it into N2. This process is called denitrification. Denitrification causes loss of nitrogen into the atmosphere. Therefore, it reduces available nitrogen in the soil. Denitrification frequently occurs in waterlogged soils where limited oxygen is present. Pseudomonas species converts nitrate ions into molecular nitrogen through following steps: nitrate to nitrite, nitrite to nitrous oxide, and nitrous oxide to nitrogen gas. Then nitrogen fixation, fourth step. The process of conversion of nitrogen gas to ammonia is termed as nitrogen fixation. Bacteria that are able to fix nitrogen require nitrogenase enzyme. Nitrogenase enzyme is inactivated by oxygen. There are two types of nitrogen-fixing microorganisms, free-living and symbiotic. Free-living nitrogen-fixing bacteria, they are abundantly found in the rhizosphere. Rhizosphere is the soil immediately surrounding the plant root. Acetobacter species is the example. Many cyanobacteria are also able to fix nitrogen, such as nostoc. These organisms exhibit mechanisms to prevent the exposure of nitrogenase enzyme to the atmospheric oxygen. Acetobacter species, they have high rate of, so they have given different mechanisms. The Acetobacter, they have a high rate of aerobic respiration. Right? Aerobic respiration rate එක වැඩි කියන්නේ මොකද? අර එන oxygen. හොඳ ඉක්මනට oxygen ටික consume කරනවා. එහෙනම් nitrogenase ට කාර්යදර කරන oxygen එයා ගාව තියෙනවද? නැහැ. Cyanobacteria, they have heterocyst. Heterocyst, they have thick walls. Inside the heterocyst, they contain nitrogenase enzyme. Some anaerobic bacteria, such as Clostridium species, also fixes nitrogen. Symbiotic nitrogen-fixing microorganisms. They play an important role in agriculture crops, such as leguminous crops, soya bean, beans, peas, and peanuts. These symbiotic nitrogen-fixing bacteria are commonly known as rhizobia. Leguminous plants are specially adapted to facilitate symbiotic nitrogen fixation. Plants form root nodules where anaerobic conditions and nutrients for bacteria are given. Bacteria fixes nitrogen and make it bioavailable to be used by the plant. Some non-leguminous plants can also fix nitrogen symbiotically with different microbial combinations. Lichen, a combination of fungus and an algae or cyanobacteria, also fixes nitrogen. In rice, paddy waters, a small free-floating fern, azolla, right? Azolla fixes nitrogen symbiotically with Anabena species. හරිද? ඒක එච්චරයි. right? එතකොට අපි ඊළඟ session එකේ මේකේ essay එකක් එහෙම කතා කරමු. right. Right. Now, interaction of soil microorganism relevant to plant growth. Now, under this topic, we have to talk about two things. Rhizosphere and mycorrhizae. Right? So, microorganisms, soil microorganisms, they directly interact with the plants. Right? Rhizosphere, mycorrhizae, endophytes. Those are the symbiotic relationships of like bacteria, fungi, and plant cells. The rhizosphere එකේ කවුද ඉන්නේ? Rhizosphere එකේ ඉන්නවා mycorrhizae නම් කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? ඒක fungi. අපි ඉගෙන ගත්තා. Fungi ඉන්නේ. Right? එතකොට rhizosphere, bacteria is the most numerous organism. Right? ඊට අමතරව like it also include it includes like bacteria such as Pseudomonas, Bacillus, and Agrobacteria. Okay, and there are like some pathogenic and symbiotic fungi also associated with this rhizosphere. Mycorrhizae කියන්නේ එතන ඉන්නේ fungi. Plant root එකක් එක fungi ඉන්න එක තමයි එතන අපි කතා කරන්නේ. Right. So interaction of soil microorganisms relevant to plant growth. What is the use of this soil microorganism for the plant growth? How they help for the plant growth? Normally, you know, the nutrients like phosphorus, nitrogen, potassium, they are limited. එතකොට plant root එකකට යන්න පුළුවන් උපරිම දුරක් තියෙනවානේ absorb කරගන්න පුළුවන් එක් ප්‍රමාණයක්. මේ microorganisms ලා කරන්නේ they increase the surface area and also they pass through the small pores in the soil where plant roots cannot reach and absorb those nutrients and provide them to the plant. Right? And also they increase the iron uptake at iron limited conditions, defense against pathogens, increase the uptake of water, right? And they do nitrogen fixation. So those are the uses of microorganisms relevant to plant growth, the interaction of soil microorganism relevant to plant growth. Look at this paragraph. Microorganisms in the soil directly interact with the plants. Interactions in the soil such as rhizosphere, mycorrhizae, endophytes with symbiotic relationship is bacteria, fungi, and plant cells. These microorganisms are beneficial to the plants in numerous ways such as nitrogen fixation, right? Underline those points. But what are the uses? Nitrogen fixation, increased uptake of water, and nutrients such as phosphorus, secretion of plant hormones such as indole acetic acid, increased iron uptake at iron limiting condition, and defense against pathogens. In return, plant provides organic compounds essential for the microorganism. අරගොල්ලෝ අර උදව් ටික කරද්දි ගහෙන් මොකද්ද කරන්නේ? ගහ ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඕනි organic compounds ටික දෙනවා. ඒගොල්ලන්ට ජීවත් වෙන්න habitat එකක් දෙනවා. Right? Hari. Now, first thing is rhizosphere. Rhizosphere. Now, this is a rhizosphere. You can see the root here, right? Rhizoplane, ectorrhizosphere, enterorhizosphere, right? Then vascular tissue, right? මේ තියෙන rhizosphere එකක් ගහක් එක්ක associate වෙලා ඉන්න. හරිද? මෙතනදී මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ? First of all, what is rhizosphere? Rhizosphere is a symbiotic interaction between the plant roots and soil surrounding the root surface for about few millimeters. හරිද? මුල වටේ තියෙන පස් මිලිමීටර් කිහිපයක් පුරාවට තියෙන පස් වල interaction එක. And this microecological zone is called the rhizosphere. Right? Rhizosphere, it is considered as the most diverse and dynamic habitat on the earth. That is very important. මොකක්ද එහෙනම් තියෙන මේ most biodiverse and dynamic habitat on the earth? That is rhizosphere. Right? So, the microorganism, who are the microorganisms present in this rhizosphere? Most numerous organism is bacteria. Right? Like Pseudomonas, Bacillus, Agrobacteria. Right? These microorganisms, these microorganisms that present in the rhizosphere, they feed on the compounds exuded by the roots, right? මුලෙන් එන like sugars, amino acids, various aromatic compounds. මුලෙන් පිට කරන ඕනෝවා මත ඒගොල්ලෝ depend වෙනවා. එහෙනම් ඒගොල්ලන්ට මේව ලබා ගන්න මොකද්ද? ලොකු competition එකක් තියෙනවා. හරිද? ඊට අමතරව nutrients, space, water මේවට ලොකු competition එකක් තියෙනවා. Right? Root exudates act as chemical signals for bacteria to move towards the root surface. මේගොල්ලෝ මේ මුලට attract වෙන්නේ මොකකින්ද? Due to the root exudates. They act as the chemical signal. Then, both pathogenic and symbiotic fungi associate with the rhizosphere. Right? Pathogenic, symbiotic, pathogenic අයත් ඉන්න පුළුවන්, symbiotic fungi ඉන්න පුළුවන් මේ rhizosphere එකේ. Right? Rhizosphere එකේ දැන් එතකොට rhizosphere එක කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? ගහක මුලයි මුලාවට තියෙන ඒ soil එකයි. ඒ කියන්නේ මිලිමීටර් කිහිපයක් අවට තියෙන soil. ඒ ecosystem එකට ඒ microecological zone එකට අපි කියනවා rhizosphere. And it is the most diverse and dynamic habitat on the earth. So, microorganisms in the rhizosphere, they feed on the compounds exuded by roots like sugars, amino acids, various aromatic compounds. And they compete for other resources like nutrients, space, and water, right? Using antimicrobial compounds, right? Then the most common numerous organism is bacteria, and some genera, Pseudomonas, Bacillus, Agrobacteria. How දැන් මේ මේවා තියෙනවා කියලා කොහොමද මේගොල්ලෝ දැනගන්නේ? අර මුලෙන් එන exudate chemical signals වලට තමයි මේ බැක්ටීරියා ගිහිල්ලා attract වෙන්නේ. And also, other than bacteria, both pathogenic and symbiotic fungi associate with the rhizosphere. Right? This is a kind of symbiotic interaction between plant roots and soil surrounding the root surface for about few millimeters. This microecological zone is called rhizosphere. Rhizosphere is considered as the most biodiverse and dynamic habitat on Earth. Microorganisms in the rhizosphere feed on the compounds exuded by roots such as sugars, amino acids, and various aromatic compounds. Microorganisms compete, antagonize using antimicrobial compounds with each other for resources such as nutrients, space, and water in the rhizosphere. Bacteria are the most numerous organisms in the rhizosphere. Three most common genera of bacteria inhabiting rhizosphere are Pseudomonas, Bacillus, and Agrobacteria. හරිද? මෙතන Pseudomonas, Bacillus කියන දෙකම මොකද්ද වෙන්න ඕනි? Underline වෙන්න ඕනි. Root exudates act as chemical signals for bacteria to move towards the root surface. Both pathogenic and symbiotic fungi associate with the rhizosphere. So that is the story of rhizosphere. Next one, mycorrhizae. මේ තියෙන්නේ mycorrhizal fungi. මේ තියෙන්නේ plant root එක, root hair එක තියෙනවා මේ තියෙන්නේ. මේ තියෙන්නේ මේ fungal vesicles තියෙනවා පේනවා ඇති. මේ fungal hype මේ නූල් වගේ තියෙන fungal hype. බලන්න මේ පින්තූරේ පේනවා ඇති fungal hype එකක් චූටි ගහ කොහොමද? ලොකුවට පැතිරිලා ගිහිල්ලා. ඒ පැතිරිලා ගියේ දැන් ඔක්කොගෙම මොකද්ද කරන්නේ? අර පොළවේ තියෙන චූටි වැලියාසේ තියෙන පස්සාසේ තියෙන චූටි හිල් වලින් ගිහිල්ලා අර තියෙන nitrogen, potassium ඒවා ඔක්කොම absorb කරලා පිනලා ගහට දෙනවා. ඒක තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ කරන්නේ. තේරුණාද? ගහේ මුල් වලට යන්න බැරි චූටි හිල් අස්සෙන් ගිහිල්ලා ඒ nutrients absorb කරනවා. Mycorrhizae is a symbiotic association between plant roots with fungi, right? Symbiotic association between plant roots with fungi. එතකොට almost all land plants, they have this symbiotic association, right? එතකොට අපි මේ තියෙන ඔක්කොම land plants හැම එකකම වගේ හැමෝම මෙන්න මේ mycorrhizae පෙන්නනවා. මේ symbiotic relationship එක පෙන්නනවා. හරිද? So mycorrhizal fungi, it extends the surface area over which these nutrients and water can be taken up by the plant, right? They reach through the small pores in the soil and where those plant roots cannot reach, and they uptake those nutrients and provide them to the plant, right? Okay. In return, හරිද? ගහත් හරි හොඳයි. අරයා මෙහෙම උදව් කරද්දි මෙයා නිකන් ඉන්නේ. රිටර්න් එකට කලගුරු සලකන විදිහට ඒගොල්ලෝ මොකද කරන්නේ? ඒ ගහෙන් මොනවද? ඕගනික් කාබන් ගහෙන් දෙනවා මේ mycorrhizaeට. හරි නේද? තේරුණාද ඒක? Mycorrhizae. Myco means fungus, rhizae means root. A symbiotic association between plant roots with fungi. Almost all land plants have symbiotic association with one or more mycorrhizal fungi. Mycorrhizal fungi extend the surface area over which nutrients and water can be taken up by the plant. They can reach by small pores in soil where plant roots cannot reach and uptake nutrients. Most significantly, mycorrhizae increase uptake of immobile nutrients such as phosphorus, zinc, and copper. In return, mycorrhizae receive organic carbon from the plant. හරිද? Any doubts? No doubts. අහගෙන නේද ඉන්නේ මිස් මා? Role of soil microorganisms in improving soil quality. Free living soil microorganisms and those associated with root surfaces play a major role in improving the soil quality. Microorganisms are involved in formation of stable soil aggregates, which are characteristics of good soil structure in the fertile soil. Fungal filaments, actinomycete filaments, and polysaccharide gums produced by bacteria are involved in soil aggregation formation. So what are the things involved in soil aggregation formation? Fungal filaments, actinomycetes filaments, and polysaccharide gums or sling. Right? එහෙනම් ඔන්න ඒ ටික ඔක්කොම ඉවරයි කතා කරලා. Right? Application of microorganism in industry, environmental management, and agriculture. So that part is over. Now the next part is microbiology of domestic water and wastewater. Right. Now if we take drinking water, හරිද නිකන් අර ගඟට බෝපේ දාලා අරගෙන බොන්න පුළුවන්ද? බෑ. Because why? That water can be contaminated with like different types of waste, like it can be contaminated with microorganisms, right? You know, like all the waste are added to the water. So we have to filter microorganisms, right? Before consumption, right? And also this drinking water can be contaminated by the dangerous pathogens of feces, right? Fecal matter වල ඉන්න microorganism කෙනෙක් වුණා මේ වතුරේ දිය වෙලා ඉන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද හැම දෙයක්ම from the industries ඊට පස්සේ agricultural waste, herbicides ඔක්කොම දාන්නේ කෙලින්ම වතුරට දානවානේ. mix ඒවා contaminate වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකට මෙතන දැන් අපි කතා කරන්න යන්නේ contamination of water with microorganisms that present in feces. දැන් කොහේ හරි කැලකින් තොලකින් වතුරක් ගන්නවා නම් ඉස්සෙල්ලාම මොකද්ද බලන්න ඕනේ මේකේ මෙහෙම feces වල ඉන්න microorganisms ලා ඉන්නවද? එහෙම ඉන්නවා නම් ඒ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? fecal matter මේකට mix වෙලා තියෙනවා. So then it is not good for the consumption, right? And chemical pollutants. Now look at this one. Drinking water resources can be contaminated with infectious disease-causing organisms or chemical pollutants. වතුර නිසා මොනවද අපිට හැදෙන ලෙඩ? Typhoid, diarrhea, right? What else? Sorry, typhoid, paratyphoid, cholera, gastroenteritis, dysentery, waterborne diseases, right? Since water undergoes a filtering of microorganisms when passed through the soil into deeper layers, generally water from springs and deep wells are of good quality in microbial point of view. හරිද? එතකොට දැන් springs උල්පත් ජලය ඊට පස්සේ ලිං වල වතුර පිරිසිදුම කියලා ගන්නෙ. ඇයි? දැන් ඒවා තියෙන්නේ මොනවද? pus layers හරහානේ වතුර ටික පෙරිලා යනවා. අර චූටි කාලේ හදන්නේ ෆිල්ට් එක ගල් කැට මේ උළුම් මොනවද අඟුරු එහෙම දාලා හදන්නේ නේද? මෙගා බෝතලයක් කපලා environment related activities වලට කරන්නේ නේ? Drinking water can be contaminated by dangerous pathogens when feces enter the water supply. Many diseases are disseminated by the fecal-oral route of transmission, in which pathogens are shed in human or animal feces, contaminate water and ingested via drinking. Examples for diseases spread by water are typhoid fever, cholera, diarrhea, etc. Contamination of drinking water by chemical pollutants is a global issue. Industry, domestic, and agricultural sectors release a large amount of chemicals that leach from the soil surface to the groundwater. Most of these chemicals are resistant to biodegradation. Most fresh waters, such as tanks, often contain excessive amount of nitrates and phosphate that come from agriculture, fertilizer, and household chemicals such as detergent. Accumulation of excessive amounts of such nutrients cause eutrophication. අර වතුර කොළ පාට වෙන්නේ, right? කොළ පාට වෙන්නේ. And flourish the growth of cyanobacteria and algae. They are toxic to human. This kind of dense growth of cyanobacteria and algae is called algal blooms. Various industries also release chemicals that are non-biodegradable. They too can contaminate drinking water supplies. Right? මේ තියෙන්නේ වතුර එක තියෙන micro එක enlarge කරලා ගත්ත ඒ පොඩි picture එකක්. Right? It's not a real one. Right. Now, microorganisms as indicators of water quality. Right? Now we are going to check whether that water we are going to test water sample for pathogens. Right? Here we have to use one microorganism as an indicator microorganism. Indicator එකක් විදියට පාවිච්චි කරනවා microorganism කෙනෙක්. හරිද? එතකොට එහෙම පාවිච්චි කරන microorganism තමයි මෙතනදී ගොඩක් වෙලාවට coliform bacteria. Eutrophication. Eutrophication කියන්නේ අර වතුර කොළ පාට වෙන්නේ. කොළ පාට අර දැකලා ඇති මෙහි මට නම මතක නැහැ. අර කොළම මොකද්ද තියෙන්නේ? මේ කොළ දැන් සුද්ධ කළාද දන්නේ නැහැ. අර මේ අර ක්‍රයිසිස් එක කාලේම මිනිස්සු උස්සලා දැම්මේ. right? වතුර කොළ පාට වෙනවා. එතනදී මොකද වෙන්නේ? අර ගිහින් nutrients එතන වැඩි. Right? Those nitrates, phosphate, they accumulate there. Right? All the nutrients that come in from the fertilizers. So it's a good place, or right, like it is a good source for the cyanobacteria and algae to grow. Right? හරිද? ඒ කට්ටියගේ grow වෙනකොට නම් algae they are green in color නේ. ඒකයි අර වතුර කොළ පාට වෙන්නේ. හරිද? ඊට පස්සේ ඔතනදී methane එහෙම produce වෙනවා. ඊපස්සේ ගඳ ගහන්නේ ඒකයි. Right? ඒ කියන්නේ මේගොල්ලෝ grow වෙනකොට අර තියෙන ඔක්කොම oxygen use කරනවානේ. ඊට පස්සේ එතන anaerobic conditions එහෙම හැදෙන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට methane produce වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අමුතු ගඳක් එන්නේ ඒකයි. ඊට පස්සේ මෙන්න මේ cyanobacteria, algal ඒගොල්ලෝ grow වෙනවාම ඒවට කියනවා අපි algal blooms කියලා. Eutrophication කියන්නේ අන්න ඒක. වතුර කොළ පාට වෙන්නේ. හරිද? Right. So when these water supplies, they can be contaminated with pathogenic microorganisms such as Salmonella species, Shigella species, and Vibrio species. Right? They cause infectious diseases, typhoid, cholera. So before consumption, we have to detect the presence of those microorganisms to prevent the to spread of diseases. Right? ලෙඩ හැදෙන එක නවත්තන්න. ඔය වතුර දැන් හිතන්න මුළු ගමකටම ගියා කියලා ඔය ලෙඩ එතකොට ගමේ ඉන්න ඔක්කොන්ටම ඔය ලෙඩ ටික හැදෙනවා. Right? එහෙනම් ඒක නවත්තන්න මේ වතුර අපි ටෙස්ට් කරන්න ඕනේ. Right? ඒවැ මේ සත්තු ඉන්නවද? ඒහි කියලා ඉතින් අපිට අරගෙන සැල්මොනෙලා ඉන්නවද? ශිගෙල්ලා ඉන්නවද? විබ්‍රියෝ ඉන්නවද? තනින් තැනට ගිහින් ඕක ටෙස්ට් කරන්න පුළුවන්ද? බෑ. මොකද ඒවා ටෙස්ට් කරලා ඒවා එනකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? ලොකු කාලයක් ගිහිලානේ. ඒ ටික නිකන් මිනිසුන්ට වතුර නොබී ඉන්න වෙනවා. ඒක ප්‍රැක්ටිකල් නෑ. Right? However, it is not practical to test water sample to look for pathogens because pathogens may present only in small numbers and might not be included in the test sample. දැන් අපි වතුර ගත්තාම ඒකේ හැමතැනම මේගොල්ලෝ ඉන්නේ නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එක තැනක විතරක් ඉන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට අපි ඒගොල්ලෝ නැති තැනකින් අරගෙන sample එක අරගෙන check කරලා no problem, it's free of microorganisms, pathogenic microorganism, you can consume කිව්වොත් මොකද වෙන්නේ? අන්න ලෙඩේ හැදෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ හැමතැනම මේ කට්ටිය නෑ. එක තැනක සමහරවල් තැන් වල ඉන්නේ. එහෙයි කියලා හැමතැනම ටෙස්ට් කරන්නත් බෑ. අනිත් එක එක්කෙනාගෙන් එක්කෙනාට ටෙස්ට් කරන්න බෑ. Right? Because it takes time. Right? So, if so, it will be too late to prevent an outbreak of the disease. Therefore, it is important to test water sample routinely for indicator organism. ඉතින් අපි indicator organism කෙනෙක්ට check කරනවා මේක, which will indicate potential contamination of water supply by pathogens. One of the major criteria for an indicator organism is that it should be consistently present in human feces in large numbers. දැන් ඔය වගේ එකක් ඔය වගේ සත්තු එන්න පුළුවන් කොහොමද? වතුරට fecal matter mix වුණා. එහෙනම් අපි කියනවා indicator organism කෙනෙක්. මේ indicator organism එයා ඉන්න ඕනේ fecal matter වල. right? හරිද? එහෙනම් මේ අපි indicator organism කෙනෙක් තෝරගනිද්දී the first criteria is it should consistently present in human feces in large numbers. Right? So it ensures the presence of indicator organism providing evidence for contamination of water supply with human feces. So in Sri Lanka, we use coliform bacteria as an indicator organism to test drinking water quality. So what is the indicator microorganism we are using here? Coliform bacteria. Harida? Right. So we use this coliform bacteria as an indicator to detect the to test drinking water quality. What are the characteristics of coliform bacteria? Coliform bacteria is aerobic or facultative and anaerobic. Gram-negative, non-endosperm forming, rod shape, right? And they can ferment lactose to form gas within 48 hours in a lactose broth medium at 35 degrees Celsius. So you should know these characteristics. What is the first? What is the major criteria for an indicator organism? It should consistently present in human feces in large numbers. So in Sri Lanka, we use coliform bacteria. And what are the characteristics of coliform bacteria? Aerobic or facultative and anaerobic, gram-negative, non-endosperm forming, rod shape, and they can ferment lactose to gas within 48 hours in a lactose broth medium at 35 degrees Celsius. Coliform constitute large portion of human intestinal microflora. They are non-pathogenic lying in the intestine. මේගොල්ලෝ intestine එකේ ඉන්නවා, හැබැයි non-pathogenic. Therefore, presence of coliform in water indicates fecal contamination. Right? ඉතින් අපේ intestine එකේ ඉන්නවා කියන්නේ එයා අනිවාර්යෙන් fecal matter වලට එකතු වෙනවා. එහෙනම් අපි බොන වතුරේ මෙයා හිටියාය කියන්නේ අනිවාර්යෙන් ඒ වතුරට මොනවද? fecal matter mix වෙලා. However, there are some coliforms found in plants and soil samples. They are specialized tests to distinguish coliforms that has fecal origin from coliform present in plant and soil sample. Fecal matter වල විතරක් නෙමෙයි මේ coliform ඉන්න පුළුවන් plant and soil samples වල. එතකොට ඒකට වෙන වෙන මේවා තියෙනවා. මෙයා මේ fecal matter වල ඉන්න coliform කෙනෙක්ද නැත්නම් ගහ plant එකක කෙනෙක්ද soil sample එකක කෙනෙක්ද කියලා වෙන් කරලා අරගන්න. හරිද? Coliform test is routinely carried out by laboratories of the National Water Supply and Drainage Board to determine water quality of drinking water. ඔතේ කිව්වට ඉතින් ඇත්තට වෙනවද දන්නේ නැහැ ලංකාවේනේ. Right? Yes. Waterborne diseases. Pathogenic organisms that are frequently transmitted through water cause infections in the intestinal tract such as typhoid, paratyphoid, cholera, gastroenteritis, dysentery, and also diarrhea. Then, now we are going to purify water. First one, there are two purification. In the first one, we are going to purify drinking water. And in the second one, it is wastewater management. Right. Drinking water purify. Now, this contains 3 steps. First one, sedimentation and coagulation. Second one, filtration. Third one, disinfection. Okay. Right. . sedimentation and coagulation. Right? Then වතුර cloudy වගේ පාටක් තියෙනවා. නිකන් සුදු පාට වගේ නම් turbidity එකක් තියෙනවා නම් first we have to keep it in a tank. හරිද? tank එක තියලා තියෙනවා. තියලා ටිකක් වෙලා තියනකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? අර දිය වෙලා තියෙන අර the particles, right, which are suspended in water, they settling down at the bottom. හරිද? ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඕන මොන හරි දිය කළත් බලන්න. ඒක හොඳට වතුරේ දිය වෙන්නේ නැත්තම් මොකද වෙන්නේ? මුලදී යා ඔන්න turbidity එකක් හදන් ඉන්නවා. ටික වෙලාවක් යද්දි එයා පහළට බහිනවා. නේද? හරිද? This occurs in large reservoirs where water remains for a holding period during which large particulate matter settles to bottom. This sedimentation, right, to enhance this, we can add alum. Alum means aluminium potassium sulfate. So it can make a sticky precipitate. Many microorganisms as well as finely suspended matter are removed here. එතකොට මේ ඇලම් දැම්මම මොකද වෙන්නේ? අර වතුරේ දිය වෙලා ඉන්න සස්පෙන්ඩ් වෙලා ඉන්න microorganisms ලා ඊට පස්සේ solid particulate matter මේවා ඔක්කොම මොකද වෙන්නේ? අයින් කරලා දාගන්න පුළුවන්. The second step is filtration. After sedimentation and coagulation, water is filtered by passing through beds of fine sand. Filtration removes protozoan cyst and other microorganisms. Microorganisms are trapped by surface absorption onto the sand particles. This removes about 99% of bacteria. Some urban treatment plants additionally use activated carbon for the removal of toxic chemicals. Okay. Third step, disinfection. The final step in water treatment is disinfection. Right? Methanadi, there are two things. We can use chlorination or we can disinfect by ozone. Now, ozone, right, in other countries, they use ozone. It is highly reactive and it kills microorganisms by oxidation. Now, if we disinfect water by using chlorine, by adding chlorine, the wet water, it has that taste. අපි බොන වතුරේ අපි කියන්නේ කොයි හරි ගියොත් ඔය ගතරගම ඒ පැත්තට ගියොත් කියන්නේ ඒ වතුර වෙනස්. ලින්දක වතුර බිව්වොත් අන්න වතුර වෙනස්. ටැප් එකක වතුර බිව්වොත් මොනවද එන්නේ? නිකන් ටැප් ලයින් එකේ ඉන්නේ ක්ලෝරින් දාපුවා. අන්න ක්ලෝරින් රහ තියෙනවා අපි කියන්නේ. හැබැයි මේ ඕසෝන් දැම්මහම ඒකෙන් අර කිසිම රහක් සුවඳක් ඒ මුකුත් ඉතිරි වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Right? The final step in water treatment is disinfection. Water can be disinfected by several methods. Chlorination is one of the most commonly used methods. It kills pathogenic bacteria. Disinfection by ozone is another method. Ozone is highly reactive. Right? Ozone is highly reactive. It kills microorganisms by oxidation. Ozone has become preferred method of disinfection since it leaves no taste or odor and has little residual effect. Okay. On the water, there are only 3 steps: sedimentation and coagulation, filtration and disinfection. එතකොට දැන් filtration වලදී අපි අයින් කරන කවුද අනිවාර්යෙන් අයින් කරන්නේ මෙතන? බැක්ටීරියා තමයි mainly අයින් වෙන්නේ. හරි? බැක්ටීරියා. Activated carbon, charcoal. Charcoal තමයි activated carbon, right? ඊළඟට waste water management. Right? Waste water means the water that used for the toilets and washing, right? Water from urban drainage system and from industry. Right. So here there are 2 steps mainly: primary treatment and secondary treatment. එතකොට MCQ එක දීලා අහන්න පුළුවන් මේවා primary treatment ද secondary treatment ද, or else in the structured essay they can ask you to write down the steps of the primary treatment and the steps of the secondary treatment, like that. Right. Primary treatment. First, large floating materials are screened out. Then removal of sand. removal of oil and grease. Solid matter settle out in sedimentation tanks. Sludge collected and removed. No biological activity is used here. ඒ කියන්නේ microorganism activity එකක් කිසිම දෙයක් පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ නැහැ. Primary treatment removes 25 to 35% organic matter. උඩ පාවෙවි තියෙන ලොකුත් කෑලි ඒව අයින් කළා දානවා. තියෙන වැලි අයින් කරනවා. oil and grease අයින් කරනවා. හරිද? ඊට පස්සේ sludge එක එකතු වෙන sludge එක අයින් කරලා දානවා. මෙතන microorganisms ලා use වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Organic matter 25 to 35% is removed. Then secondary treatment, right? Primary treatment එක කරක් පස්සේ ඊළඟට secondary treatment එකට ගෙනියනවා. The liquid flowing out of the primary treatment enters the secondary stage. During this state treatment, wastewater is aerated. ඒ කියන්නේ oxygen දෙනවා. Oxygen දෙනකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? Now it has that aerobic condition. So aerobic bacteria, they can grow in that and they carry out microbial oxidation. Right? එතකොට මෙතනදී use කරන system දෙක activated sludge and trickling filter. Activated sludge එක හරි trickling filter එක හරි තමයි use කරන්නේ. So in the activated sludge, vigorous aeration is done mechanically. In trickling filter, wastewater is slowly sprinkled or sprayed over a bed of rocky material and allowed to trickle. In this process, microorganisms grow on the filter bed and oxidize organic matter. In secondary treatment, 75 to 95% of organic material oxidized. The liquid flowing through this system are then disinfected and allowed to flow into natural waters. Sludge remaining from both treatment is sent to an anaerobic sludge digester where anaerobic decomposition converts the organic material in the sludge finally to methane and carbon dioxide. හරිද? And digested sludge can be used as a fertilizer. Right? ඕක තමයි ඒකේ ටික. ඊළඟට adverse effects of discharging large amount of wastewater into natural habitat. Dissemination of pathogenic microorganisms. Water pollution due to accumulation of biodegradable material and their decomposition product. Decomposition which may consume large amount of oxygen in water affecting aquatic organisms. Anaerobic decomposition leading to bad smell. Methane හැදෙන එක. Right? Okay. Any doubts? Right. Next one, solid waste treatment. We have discussed about this one in a previous part also. Solid waste means again what? Plant and animal residues, polythene, plastic, right? Glass, those things. So now if we take that all those waste, some are degradable, some are rapidly degradable, some are non-degradable, right? So for example, organic waste like plant and animal residues, food waste, they are rapidly degradable. But polythene, glass, plastic, are they degradable? No. So we have to properly manage this solid waste treatment. If not, it will affect the community health and environmental safety. Right? අපේ රටේ උනේ කුණු කන්දක් කඩාගෙන වැටුනේ නේද? මිනිස්සුත් යට කරා. Environmental and hygienic importance of recycling solid waste. Open dumping of waste, providing breeding grounds for mosquitoes, flies, other insects and rats. Right? එතකොට මේ කුණු ගොඩවල් කියන්නේ කාටද? Mosquitoes la flies, for them it's like a kingdom for them. So they can grow in those environment and they can spread various dangerous diseases. Like if we take mosquitoes, they can spread dengue, right? Then rats, right? Also they can cause like leptospirosis, chikungunya, like that kind of diseases. Then if these waste, they can contaminate water resources and results in spreading waterborne diseases like typhoid, paratyphoid, cholera, dysentery, gastroenteritis. ඊට පස්සේ මෙහෙම දැන් තැන් වල මෙහෙම if there are piles of waste in like public environments, then like it is very unpleasant and it can result in unpleasant smell due to the anaerobic digestion of waste. And also these piles, heavy piles of waste are dangerous because what? Due to the accumulation of methane, right? Methane can cause explosion and fire. Groundwater can be polluted by leachate of waste piles. ඒ කියන්නේ කුණු ගොඩවල් ගහලා තියෙදි ඒවෙන් බේරිලා එන fluid එකක් වගේ බේරිලා එනවනේ වතුර වගේ, right? කුණු අතරින්. එතකොට ඒකේ තියෙන මොනවද? ඒකේ තියෙනවා අර කුණු වල තිබ්බ දේවල් extract කරගෙන දිය වෙච්ච දේවල් අරගෙන ඉන්නේ. ඕක ගිහිල්ලා ground water pollute කරන්න පුළුවන්. So those are the environmental and hygienic importance of recycling solid waste. So there are three methods to manage solid waste. Sorting and recycling, right? Sorting and recycling is carried out in schools, right? There are 3S, the 5S, ne? ඒ concept එකට මොකද්ද කරේ කාලයක් ඉස්කෝලේ වල ඔය විදිහට කුණු එහෙම බාල්දි වෙනම දාලා වෙන් කරන්න ඕනි එහෙම කියලා තිබ්බේ, right? Then degradation, and the last one is sanitary landfilling. So sorting and recycling. So in our country also, when municipal council they collect these solid waste, they ask us to sort those waste material as kitchen waste, plant material, paper, plastic separately, right? So this sorting, by sorting, we can separate the waste that can be recycled, like paper, plastic, and glass, right? Although paper is presumably biodegradable, it is not easily degraded since microorganisms cannot effectively attack papers when the waste is placed into large compact dumping sites. Degradation or decomposition of organic matter. Readily degradable organic matter such as kitchen and garden waste is subject to natural microbial degradation. Right? Compost ගෙදර හදන එක. දැන් compost වල මොකද තිබ්බේ? Aerobic conditions තිබ්බේ මතකද? First, it is dominated by thermophilic bacteria and increase the pile temperature to 55 to 66 degrees, 60 degrees. Then after a few days, when the temperature decreases, that thermophilic bacteria population is replaced by mesophilic bacteria. And we have to enhance the activity. Right? So we have to enhance their activity by providing sufficient amount of moisture, and we have to turn the pile to aerobic, to aerate it, right? Yes. Next one, sanitary landfilling. So this is the most popular form of waste disposal because this is the least expensive way. Now here what is happening is, this is sanitary landfilling. It is an engineered means of disposal of waste. Here waste is separated in layers or on a piece of property. Make a කුණු ටික අතුරනවා. Right? Usually on marginal or submarginal land. කුණු ටික, right? They spread the layers and they compact them tightly. ඔන්න එකපාරක් දාලා ඒක උඩින් පස් දාලා හරියට compact කරනවා. කියන්නේ volume එක අඩු කරනවා. Right? And the other thing is, this land, it should be located in areas with high groundwater, should not be located in areas with high groundwater levels, right? So much of the waste in the sanitary landfill will decompose through biological and chemical processes that produce solid, liquid, and gaseous products. Here, how they do this? They spread the waste, they spread the garbage in layers on a piece of property and compact it tightly, and they greatly reduce the volume and cover it with soil, right? Yes. So that part is also finished. Next one, food spoilage. Any doubts? Right. Now if we take our food, right? It can be either plant originated food or animal origin. They have like අපි ගත්තොත් අපි කන ඕනම කෑමක, right? There are a lot of nutrients, right? Moisture, right? So the food that we consume is a very good source for the microorganisms to grow. Neither. Because microorganisms, they are ubiquitous on Earth. They can found everywhere. So fruit, food, whatever the things we eat is not an exception for them. They can use it as a culture medium, as a nutrient broth, right? So bacteria, yeast, molds, they grow in this broth, right? So growth of this microorganism in our food, it changed the chemical and biological structure of the food, and as a result, they make it unfit for the consumption. This is called food spoilage, right? So microorganisms, they grow in food, right? When they grow, what happens as a result of that? They grow means they secrete different kind of extracellular enzymes. As a result of those extracellular enzymes, large molecules broke down into small molecules, right? So the chemical nature, physical nature, as well as the biological structure of the food changes. Okay. Next one. What are the chemical changes that takes place in food due to this action of microorganism? First one, putrefaction. Putrefaction means like it happens in protein containing food, right? Due to the proteolytic enzymes secreted by proteolytic microorganisms, proteins are broken down into amino acids, amines, ammonia, and hydrogen sulfide. So this is called putrefaction. Then now if we come to carbohydrate, they undergo something called fermentation. In fermentation, right, complex carbohydrates in the food break down into simple carbohydrate by the amylase secreted by microorganisms. Then those simple carbohydrates, that means sugars, are converted into carbohydrate food acids, alcohol, and gases by enzymes secreted from saccharolytic enzymes, saccharolytic microorganisms. And the last one is rancidity. Rancidity, it occurs in lipid-containing food. Here, due to the enzyme secreted by lipolytic microorganism, lipids are converted into fatty acids plus glycerol. Right? So these three are the chemical changes takes in food: putrefaction, fermentation, and rancidity. Then what are the physical changes? කෑමක් ගත්තොත් නරක් වුණාම කොහොමද නිකන් නූල් ඇදෙනවා වගේ. හරිම නිකන් අර ජොල් softening of food. ඊට පස්සේ කලර් එක වෙනස් වෙලානේ, pigmentation. Toxin accumulate වෙලා කියන එක නම් ඉතින් කාලම බලන්න වෙනවා. Slim gum formation, ropiness, right? නූල් වගේ කියන එක තමයි ropiness කියන්නේ. Right? එතකොට softening of food නම් අල්ලලා බලන්න ඕනේ. Pigmentation, ropiness, slime or gum formation ඒවා දැක්කහම පේනවා. So what are the factors that influence on food spoilage? Both external factors as well as internal factors affect the food spoilage. External factors like internal factors කියන්නේ food එකේ ඇතුලේ තියෙනවා. මොනවද? Nutrient content එක, moisture content එක, pH, right? ඒ වගේ දේවල්. External කියන්නේ පිටත. එහෙනම් ඒගොල්ලෝ store කරලා තියෙන temperature එක. ඊට පස්සේ environment එකේ humidity එක. Right? ඊට පස්සේ oxygen තියෙනවා නම් aerobic අයනවා, oxygen නැත්නම් anaerobic අයනවා. එහෙනම් presence and concentration of gases in the environment. Those are three factors, external factors that influence on food spoilage. Right, බලමු. Temperature of storage. Growth of microorganisms is affected by a wide range of temperatures. At low temperatures, growth is low. That's why we store our food in fridge. නේද? fridge එකේ දැම්මත් සමහරලාට කැම නරක් වෙනවා. ඇයි ඒ? ඒ තරම් අඩු temperature වලත් grow වෙනා ඉන්නවා, but we can control, right? Therefore, spoilage is also at ambient temperature, growth is high, and therefore spoilage is also high. However, even at low temperatures, microbial spoilage occurs by psychrophilic bacteria, right? Second one, relative humidity of the environment. Relative humidity of the storage environment is important as it releases to the availability of moisture. Relative humidity and humidity වැඩි කියන්නේ environment එකේ moisture වැඩි. Moisture means it is an important factor for the food spoilage, right? For the microbial growth, they need moisture. So low moisture containing foods like they should not be stored in high relative humidity environment. කෑම එක moisture අඩු නම් moisture වැඩි තැනක තියන්න හොඳ නැහැ. මොකද වෙන්නේ? උරා ගන්නවා. Right? Then third one, presence and concentration of gases in the environment. Presence or absence of O2 determine the type of contaminant causing food spoilage. ඒ කියන්නේ aerobic එකකින්ද anaerobic එකකින්ද මේ food spoilage කරන්න කියන එක. Next one, internal factors. There are 4: pH, moisture, nutrient content, and biological structure. pH. Most microorganisms grow at pH values around 7, right? And very few grow below 4. It can acidic condition. Mold and yeast, they can grow over a wide range of pH from very low to very high. pH දෙකේ ඉඳන් 10 කියන range එකේ මේ fungi වෙනවා. Bacteria grow between pH 5 and 7. එතකොට lime, orange, banana, they are spoiled by what? By whom? By molds and yeast. And animal food are spoiled by bacteria. Beef, chicken, fish, milk. Then mold and yeast. ඔය තුන් දෙනා තමයි ඒවා spoilage කරන්නේ. Moisture contain. එතකොට කෑම කල් තියාගන්න මොකද කරන්නේ? ඔය කරවල එහෙම වේලනවා නේ. ගොඩක් ඒවා වේලන්නේ ඇයි ඒ? moisture content එක තමයි වේලලා අපි අඩු කරන්නේ. හරිද? එතකොට moisture content එක වැඩි නම් මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඒවා spoil වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Right? එතකොට high moisture containing food such as meat and fish are spoiled by bacteria. Low moisture containing food such as biscuit and bread are spoiled by molds. Dried milk powder, flour, which contains very low moisture, are not easily spoiled by bacteria or molds. Salt and sugar containing foods are generally spoiled by halophilic bacteria, osmophilic, and xerophilic molds or yeast. Next one, nutrient content. Water, source of energy, nitrogen, vitamins, minerals, ඔවා තමයි microorganisms ලට ඕනේ nutrients. හරිද? එතකොට nutrients වැඩි නම් ඒක ඉක්මනට ලේසියෙන් spoil වෙනවා. Biological structure. දැන් බිත්තරයක් ගත්තාම කට්ටකින් cover වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. කට්ට විදගෙන යන්න බැරි හින්දා ඔන්න බිත්තරේ රැකිලා තියෙනවා. Microorganisms ලගෙන් බෑ ඒක spoil කරන්න. Right? ඒක නැත්තම් පාලතුරක පිටපොත් outer covering එක. ඊළඟට foodborne diseases. Typhoid හදන්නේ Salmonella typhi, dysentery Shigella, cholera vibrio cholera, food poisoning Staphylococcus aureus, botulism Clostridium botulinum, aflatoxin, Aspergillus flavus. එතකොට ඔයගේ මුල් තුන foodborne infections, අනිත් තුන food intoxication. Right. So effects of food spoilage on human health. The microorganisms, when they grow on food, they produce various toxic substances. So these toxic substances, they can cause food poisoning, right? Then නරක් වෙලා තියෙන කෑමක් අපි කෑවොත් මේ වස ටිකත් ඒ කියන්නේ විෂ ජාතිත් අපේ ඇඟට යනවා. එතකොට අපිට ලෙඩක් හැදෙන්න පුළුවන්. හරිද? ඒ කියන්නේ නරක් වෙච්ච කෑම කන්න එපා කියන්නේ. So microorganisms grow and multiply in food, increasing the number of microbial cells, and also produce toxic chemical substances. Ingestion of large number of microbial cells and their toxic chemicals by an individual through highly contaminated food may develop disease. These diseases illness are two kinds: foodborne diseases and the next type is food intoxication. Foodborne කියන්නේ the contaminating pathogenic microorganism it enter the body of the individual who consumes my food. And inside the host, they grow and multiply and produce toxins, which can cause symptoms. So salmonella, typhi, shigella, vibrio cholera මොකද කරන්නේ? අපේ ඇඟ ඇතුළට ඇවිත් තමයි ලෙඩේ හදන්නේ. Food intoxication කියන්නේ දැන් අර spoiled food it contain toxin produced by microbial growth. So when an individual consume that contaminated food containing toxin, it starts to develop diseases. Staphylococcus aureus, Clostridium botulinum, Aspergillus flavus. හදන්නේ ඔන්න ඔය තියෙන ටික දෙනවා. So in general, all illnesses are referred to as food poisoning, right? කෑම විෂවීම. Viruses also cause some foodborne illnesses. හරිද? ඒ කොටස ඉවරයි. ඒ කොටස ඉවරයි. පාඩමත් ඉවරයි. Any doubts?